In the deepest part of night, when even dreams have settled into stillness, there exists a kind of silence that feels almost like memory. It is in this gentle darkness that we begin our journey tonight, not across lands or seas, but through the vast, breathing emptiness where worlds and wanderers alike find their paths. Somewhere above us, beyond the thin veil of our atmosphere, something ancient is moving, something that has traveled farther than all human history, something that carries within its frozen heart a story older than our oldest stones. The stars know its name. 3I Atlas, a traveler between stars, a fragment of elsewhere, slowly arcing toward our small blue world. Think of it now, drifting through the endless black, patient as only the cosmos can be. Before the first human eyes gazed upward in wonder, before our ancestors named the stars or charted their slow dance across seasons, this celestial visitor was already in motion, already finding its way toward us through the infinite labyrinth of gravity and light. We call it a comet, but perhaps that word is too small, too familiar for something that has crossed the void between solar systems, something that has seen the darkness between stars, something that has witnessed the birth and death of suns, the slow formation of planetary systems, the quiet ballet of celestial bodies moving through their ancient rhythms. For unlike the comets familiar to us, those that orbit our sun in predictable ellipses, returning with mathematical precision, 3I Atlas comes from elsewhere, from a place we have never seen and will never reach, from a neighborhood of stars entirely separate from our own. Imagine its journey, millions of years of silence and cold, no sound but the whisper of solar wind, no light but the distant pinpricks of galaxies, no destination but the one written into its path by forces we can barely comprehend. And now it draws nearer, now it enters the neighborhood of our sun. Now it begins to feel the gentle pull of our world. There is something almost like poetry in this arrival, something that speaks to the deepest part of our wondering minds. For what is more human than to look upward and ask, what comes from beyond? What messages might be carried in the light of distant travelers? What stories might be written in the frozen heart of something that has crossed between stars? These questions are ancient, etched into the earliest human consciousness. They live in our myths, our religions, our sciences, our dreams. They persist through civilizations and technologies, through revolutions in our understanding of the cosmos. They remain essentially unchanged, even as our answers evolve. Consider the immensity of such a journey. Our fastest spacecraft, moving at speeds that would circle the Earth in hours, would require tens of thousands of years to reach even the nearest star. Yet 3I Atlas has traveled not from the nearest star, but from some unknown point in the cosmic ocean, some distant shore we can only imagine. It has moved through a darkness more profound than any we have known, through stretches of emptiness so vast that our minds struggle to comprehend them. It has persisted through durations that make our entire species seem momentary, our civilizations fleeting, our individual lives less than heartbeats in the cosmic rhythm. And somehow, against all odds, its path and ours have intersected in this precise moment, in this breath of cosmic time, when we have just developed the capacity to recognize it for what it is, to understand the significance of its journey, to welcome it, however briefly, into our corner of the universe. The first images arrived without ceremony, just another faint smudge against the perfect black. A streak of light so distant that it might have been overlooked entirely, were it not for the patient eyes of our mechanical watchers, telescopes scanning the heavens night after night, programmed to notice the subtlest changes in the eternal canvas above. These instruments are our expanded senses, allowing us to peer deeper into the cosmos than any human eye could manage alone. They capture light too faint for our biological perception, wavelengths beyond our visual spectrum, patterns too slow or too distant for our unassisted observation. Through them, we have expanded our awareness beyond the limits of our bodies, beyond the boundaries of our atmosphere, beyond even the edges of our solar system. At first, it seemed like any other comet, a frozen wanderer from the distant edges of our own solar system. Our sun maintains a cloud of such objects, the Oort cloud, a spherical shell of icy bodies orbiting at distances so great that they appear from Earth to be among the stars themselves. From this distant reservoir, comets occasionally fall inward, drawn by the sun's gravity or nudged by passing stars, beginning journeys that might bring them into the inner solar system where we can observe them more clearly. This was the first assumption when 3I Atlas appeared in our telescopes. another visitor from our own Oort cloud. Interesting, but not unprecedented, but numbers tell stories to those who know how to listen. And the numbers whispered something unusual, something that made astronomers pause, recalculate, and look again with widened eyes. The velocity was too high, the angle of approach too steep, the orbital eccentricity beyond what could be explained by a body bound to our sun. These parameters, dry and technical though they might seem, spoke of something extraordinary, something that challenged our understanding of our cosmic neighborhood, something that had come not from the outer reaches of our solar system, but from beyond it entirely, from interstellar space, from the vast dark ocean between stars. The trajectory was wrong for a solar system object. The speed was wrong for something bound to our sun. The angle of approach spoke not of an orbital path around our star, but of something else entirely, a path that began somewhere among other stars, other suns, other worlds we will never know. Each night as new data arrived, the picture became clearer. The streak of light moved with purpose, its path sharpening with each observation. What had once seemed a casual passerby revealed itself as something more deliberate. 3i Atlas wasn't merely drifting through our corner of the galaxy. It was coming toward us, coming home though it had never been here before, coming to be witnessed, though this purpose existed only in our human interpretation. Our tendency to find meaning in the meaningless, pattern in the random, intention in the merely physical. When we track the path of 3i Atlas backward through time and space, we find ourselves looking outward, beyond the familiar boundaries of our solar system, into the deep between. The calculations are complex, the uncertainties significant, but the conclusion inescapable. This object originated elsewhere. It was born in the vicinity of another star, perhaps in the process of planetary formation that creates most comets, perhaps in some other, more exotic manner we have yet to understand. It was ejected from that stellar system by forces we can only model theoretically. A close encounter with a massive planet, perhaps, or the gravitational influence of a passing star. And then, for millions of years, it drifted, alone, frozen, silent, moving through the darkness between stars at speeds that, while enormous by human standards, would still require eons to cross the vast distances of our galaxy. Where did it begin? What distant star gave birth to this wanderer? Our instruments cannot tell us with certainty. The journey has been too long, the influences too numerous, the path too complex to reconstruct with perfect precision. Perhaps it came from a star visible in our night sky, one of those points of light that our ancestors named and mapped and wove into their mythologies. Perhaps it came from a star too distant or too dim for us to see without our most powerful telescopes. Or perhaps it has been traveling so long that its birthplace no longer exists in any form we would recognize. The star that created it having long since exhausted its nuclear fuel, expanding into a red giant before collapsing into a white dwarf, or exploding as a supernova before condensing into a neutron star or black hole. A nomad without a home, carrying the memory of cosmic landscapes we will never see. They call it interstellar, a simple word for something profound. Inter, between, stellar of the stars, between worlds, between possibilities. The designation feels somehow inadequate for the vastness it implies. For something to travel between stars means to know a kind of solitude no earthly traveler has ever experienced. A loneliness measured not in hours or days but in eons, in distances so vast that light itself grows old crossing them, in durations that encompass the rise and fall of species, of ecosystems, of entire planetary environments. What does it mean to travel for so long? To persist through such emptiness? These questions have no answers, yet they arise unbidden as we contemplate the journey of 3i Atlas, as we try to comprehend what it means to cross the void between stars. What gentle current carried this frozen messenger across the cosmic ocean? What invisible architecture of gravity and radiation guided it through the endless dark? Scientists speak of stellar winds and gravitational perturbations, of ejection events and orbital disruptions. But beneath these technical terms lies a simpler truth, that the universe is in constant motion, that nothing, not even the most distant fragments of creation, remains forever still, that somewhere, somehow, everything is traveling towards something else. The stars themselves move, orbiting the galactic center in great sweeping paths that take hundreds of millions of years to complete. The galaxies move, drawn toward each other by gravity, forming clusters and superclusters that shape the largest structures we can observe. And within this vast, complex choreography of cosmic motion, a single frozen fragment finds its way to our doorstep. A messenger without a message, yet speaking volumes by its mere existence. In some sense, we too are interstellar travelers. Our planet moves through space at remarkable speed, around the Sun at 67,000 miles per hour, with the Sun around the galactic center at 448,000 miles per hour, with the galaxy through the local group at yet another 1.3 million miles per hour. We are never still, never fixed, never truly at rest relative to the cosmos. We too are moving between stars, though in our case we bring our star with us on the journey. Perhaps this is part of what draws us to objects like 3-Eye Atlas, some unconscious recognition of shared motion, of common journey, of mutual participation in the great cosmic dance of matter and energy across space and time. In laboratories and observatories around our world, minds turn toward this approaching visitor with a mixture of curiosity and reverence. They gather in conference rooms and video calls, sharing data, comparing observations, refining models and predictions. They coordinate telescope time, plan observation campaigns, develop strategies for gathering as much information as possible during the comet's brief passage through our inner solar system. For unlike comets that orbit our Sun, which may return many times for our study, 3-Eye Atlas will pass through our neighborhood only once. Its trajectory is hyperbolic, a mathematical term indicating an orbit that does not close upon itself, that does not return to its starting point, that leads inevitably outward, away, beyond. This is our one chance to study it, our one opportunity to learn what it might teach us about the space between stars, about the composition of other planetary systems, about the processes that shape cosmic evolution beyond our immediate neighborhood. Some see in it a relic of creation, a frozen fragment from the first dawn of stars, preserved in the perfect cold of interstellar space, a time capsule from the universe's youth, carrying within its icy shell the same primordial materials that would one day form our own world, our own bodies. Others see a messenger, silent but eloquent, carrying whispers from galaxies we will never visit, stories we will never hear. Each hypothesis feels like a kind of poem. Every equation, a prayer of sorts. An attempt to translate the language of the cosmos into something our brief, brilliant minds might understand. For beneath the scientific language, beneath the precise calculations and careful observations, lies something older, the simple human desire to comprehend, to connect, to find our place within the vastness. To reach out, if only in understanding, to touch something that has journeyed so far to meet us. There is humility in such work. To look upward at something so ancient, so utterly beyond our reach, and yet to attempt understanding. To acknowledge how small we are against the vastness, how brief our moment, and still to ask our questions of the night. To send our instruments and our imagination outward, seeking connection with something that has traveled so far to meet us. Perhaps this is what makes us human. Not the answers we find, but the questions we cannot help but ask. The curiosity that drives us always to look beyond the horizon, beyond the atmosphere, beyond even the boundaries of our solar system, to wonder what lies in the darkness between stars, and to recognize when it arrives on our doorstep, a visitor from that very darkness. In the silence of observatories, in the focused attention of researchers, in the quiet excitement of those who follow such discoveries, there lives something profound, a recognition of connection across cosmic distances, a sense that despite the emptiness that separates stars, despite the vastness that makes our world seem so isolated, we are not entirely alone. We are part of a galaxy in which matter moves, in which frozen fragments can travel from one stellar system to another, in which the boundaries between cosmic neighborhoods are permeable, navigable, crossed. There is comfort in this knowledge, alongside the wonder and the mystery, a sense that the universe, for all its vastness, is still a single place, a continuum in which we and 3-Eye Atlas and all the stars we see participate equally, bound by the same physical laws, composed of the same fundamental elements, subject to the same cosmic processes of formation and transformation. The trajectory shifted, almost imperceptibly at first, a subtle tilt, a gentle curve that would have meant nothing in earthly terms, but in the mathematics of celestial motion, it was monumental. The gravitational influence of our sun began to bend the path of 3I Atlas, drawing it inward, along a slightly different trajectory than its initial approach. Observers recalculated, their hearts quiet with a kind of astronomical awe. The numbers spoke clearly now. 3I Atlas was no longer merely passing through our solar system, but bending its path in response to the sun's gravity. It was being drawn deeper into our corner of the cosmos, its journey now inextricably linked with our own. On track to reach the inner solar system, on track perhaps to be visible from Earth itself. This is how gravity works across the cosmos, not as a force that pulls objects together in straight lines, but as a curvature in the very fabric of space-time. The sun creates a kind of valley in this fabric, and all objects moving through our solar system respond to this curvature, following paths that reflect both their initial momentum and the gravitational landscape through which they travel. 3I Atlas, approaching from interstellar space, now feels this curvature more strongly. It begins to accelerate, drawn toward the sun even as its tremendous velocity ensures it will never be captured into a closed orbit. It will pass through, accelerate around the sun in a graceful hyperbolic arc, and then continue outward, back into interstellar space, moving even faster than when it arrived. A cosmic slingshot effect that will send it toward other stars, other systems, other possible encounters in the distant future. There is something profound in such a moment, when the path of something so distant, so other begins to intersect with our own, when the traveler from beyond begins to feel the same forces that shape our days and years. The same sun that warms our skin now reaches out with invisible hands to touch this ancient wanderer, to draw it closer, to welcome it, however briefly, into the family of objects that orbit our star. We are connected now, however temporarily, bound by the same physics, warmed by the same light. Our solar system is not a closed environment, not an isolated island in the cosmic ocean, but a dynamic system that interacts with the galaxy around it, that occasionally welcomes visitors from beyond, incorporating their influence, however subtle, into its ongoing evolution. As 3I Atlas approaches, its velocity increasing under the sun's gravitational influence, astronomers refine their predictions. They calculate when it will reach perihelion, its closest approach to the sun. They estimate how bright it might become as solar radiation heats its surface, releasing frozen gases in a process called sublimation. They model the potential development of a coma, the cloud of gas and dust that surrounds the nucleus of an active comet, and a tail, or perhaps multiple tails, streaming away from the sun under the influence of solar radiation and the solar wind. These predictions are both scientific and artistic, combining precise mathematical models with informed speculation. Educated guesses about how a body of unknown composition might respond to the increasing warmth of our star. For despite our advanced technology, despite our sophisticated understanding of cometary behavior, 3I Atlas remains fundamentally mysterious. A visitor from another stellar system, potentially formed under conditions different from those of our own comets, potentially composed of materials in proportions unlike those we have previously encountered. Comets have always been storytellers. They speak not in words but in light and vapor, in trails that shimmer like thoughts dissolving into time. The ancient Greeks called them kometes, the long-haired ones, for the glowing manes they developed as they approached the sun. To many early cultures they were omens, messengers, tears in the fabric of the heavens. They appeared suddenly, moved unlike any other celestial object, and vanished just as mysteriously. Little wonder they inspired both awe and fear. The Bayeux Tapestry shows Halley's comet as a portent of change, appearing before the Norman conquest of England in 1066. The comet of 44 BCE was interpreted as the soul of Julius Caesar, ascending to the heavens after his assassination. The appearance of Halley's comet in 1910 sparked panic in some communities, with entrepreneurs selling comet pills to protect against the allegedly poisonous gases in its tail. Even now, with our scientific understanding of comets as natural objects, frozen wanderers from the outer solar system, or, in the case of 3I Atlas, from beyond, something of this ancient awe remains in our response, something that recognizes in these celestial visitors a reminder of our place in the cosmos, a connection to forces and scales beyond our everyday experience. As 3I Atlas draws nearer, its own silence becomes a kind of language. The way it reflects sunlight, the subtle changes in its brightness, the first whispers of outgassing as the sun's warmth begins to touch its surface. All of these are utterances of a sort. Data points that, when gathered and analyzed, form sentences in a cosmic dialogue we are only beginning to understand. What is it saying, this visitor from beyond? Perhaps nothing we might recognize as communication. Perhaps its message is simply its existence, the mere fact that something can travel so far, survive so much emptiness, and still find its way to be seen, to be noticed, to be incorporated, however briefly, into human awareness. The light that reaches us from 3i Atlas carries information encoded in its wavelengths. Spectroscopic analysis reveals the chemical composition of its surface and coma, the elements and compounds present, their relative abundances, their state and distribution. This light has traveled millions of miles to reach our telescopes, our instruments, our eyes. It has crossed the vacuum of space, penetrated our atmosphere and registered on our detectors, a kind of contact, mediated by photons between something human and something decidedly not, a bridge across the emptiness, constructed of light itself. Perhaps this is what all astronomy is at its core, a reaching outward through the medium of light, an attempt to touch, however indirectly, the fabric of the cosmos beyond our immediate reach. There is poetry in such journeys, in the patient crossing of unfathomable distances, in the quiet persistence of a frozen wanderer that has outlasted civilizations, outlasted species, outlasted perhaps even the star of its birth. We measure our lives in years, in decades, if we are fortunate. 3i Atlas measures its journey in millions of orbits of our planet around our sun, in the slow drift of constellations, in the birth and death of entire star systems. And yet, despite this vast difference in our experience of time, for a brief moment our stories intersect. We exist together in the same sliver of cosmic history. We share the same sunlight. Our paths cross, however, tangentially in the vast emptiness of space. There is something profound in this temporary convergence, this brief alignment of trajectories that began in such different places, at such different times, yet somehow led to this moment of shared existence, of mutual recognition, even if that recognition exists only on our side of the encounter. When we look at 3i Atlas, we are not merely observing a distant object, but participating in a kind of relationship, a dialogue between observer and observed, between human consciousness and cosmic process. Our attention completes something, though we cannot name exactly what. Our witnessing gives meaning, if only in our own understanding, to movements and patterns that would otherwise unfold unseen, unappreciated, unmarked by awareness. Perhaps this is one of the gifts of human existence, this capacity to notice, to wonder, to find significance in the movements of distant objects, to transform the physical interactions of matter and energy into stories, into meaning, into experiences that enrich our brief moment of consciousness in the vast cosmic narrative. In ancient times, people looked upward and saw in such celestial visitors signs of transformation, harbingers of change. They saw omens, prophecies, messages written in the sky by invisible hands. They recorded these apparitions in their histories, their art, their mythologies. The comet that appeared before the assassination of Julius Caesar, the broom star that heralded the Norman conquest of England, Halley's Comet, returning through the centuries like a punctuation mark in human affairs. Each appearance a moment when the heavens seemed to acknowledge earthly events, when the cosmic and human narratives briefly aligned. When something beyond human influence or control nevertheless seemed to speak directly to human concerns, human fears, human hopes. We know now that comets follow paths determined by gravity and momentum, not by human affairs, that their appearances coincide with historical events only by chance, not design, that they carry no messages beyond the scientific information encoded in their composition, their structure, their behavior, under the influence of solar radiation. And yet something of that ancient response persists, something that recognizes in these celestial visitors a reminder of our cosmic context, a connection to scales of time and distance that transcend our brief lives, our limited perspectives, a moment when the vastness touches us directly, when the cosmic becomes personal, when the infinite intersects with the finite in a visible, tangible way. Now, we see data where our ancestors saw divinity. We see particles where they saw portents. We measure and calculate where they interpreted and prophesied. Our modern understanding is built on mathematics, on spectroscopy, on the precise tracking of orbits and trajectories. And yet, somewhere deep inside even the most rational observer, that same tremor remains, that soft hum of wonder and unease that has always accompanied humanity's encounter with the cosmic visitor. The sense that something significant is occurring, even if we cannot name exactly what it is. That some boundary is being crossed, some perspective shifted, some awareness expanded beyond its previous limits. Perhaps this is the true constant in human responses to celestial phenomena across the centuries. Not the specific interpretations, which change with culture and knowledge, but the underlying recognition of significance. The feeling that in these moments, we participate more directly in the cosmic narrative, that we are reminded of our place within a much larger story than the ones we typically tell ourselves. Perhaps this feeling arises from recognition from some ancient part of ourselves that remembers we too are made of star stuff, that the elements in our bodies, the carbon and nitrogen and oxygen that form our flesh and blood, were forged in stellar furnaces and scattered across space by cosmic cataclysms, that we and the comet are distant cousins of a sort, shaped by the same universal processes, subject to the same physical laws, different only in our configurations, our temperatures, our momentary forms. There is a profound truth in this perspective, a recognition that the boundaries between us and it, between Earth and cosmos, between human and non-human, are in some sense illusory, that we are not separate from the universe, but embedded within it, not observers of cosmic processes, but expressions of them. Each of us a temporary gathering of matter and energy that was once scattered across space, that will one day return to that scattering, yet for this brief moment exists as a coherent whole, as a being capable of looking outward and recognizing itself in the movements of distant objects, in the light of ancient travelers, in the silent journeys of interstellar comets. As it nears the warmth of our sun, the frozen heart of 3I Atlas begins to stir. Ice that has remained solid for millions of years in the deep cold of interstellar space now feels the first subtle touch of heat. Molecules that have been locked together since before humans walked the Earth begin to separate, to rise, to expand. Jets of vapor burst outward in glittering plumes, catching the sunlight like memories becoming visible. A slow, radiant exhale after eons of silence. The universe watches its long-forgotten traveler awaken, shedding its ancient shell one luminous particle at a time. This transformation is violent on a molecular scale, a rapid transition from solid to gas, a breaking of chemical bonds, a release of substances long imprisoned in crystalline structures of ice. Yet from our distant vantage point, it appears gentle, gradual, almost meditative. A slow blooming in the emptiness of space, a halo forming around the solid nucleus, catching the sunlight and spreading it outward in a diffuse glow. A tail, or perhaps multiple tails, beginning to form, streaming away from the sun like a pennant, a banner, a signal visible across millions of miles. There is beauty in this transformation, a cosmic alchemy whereby something dark and frozen becomes radiant, expressive, visible across vast distances. A reminder that change is not always loss. That transformation can reveal as well as alter. That what was hidden in darkness can, under the right conditions, become luminous. This transformation is both violent and beautiful, a kind of birth and death occurring simultaneously. The very process that makes the comet visible to us is also the process of its dissolution. Each glittering trail of dust and gas represents something being lost, something being left behind. Yet in this leaving, there is a kind of poetry, a giving of itself to the space around it, a becoming visible through the very act of coming apart. The solid nucleus remains, but it is diminished with each outgassing event, each release of frozen volatiles, each shedding of dust particles. The comet we see today will not be the same comet that eventually leaves our solar system, continuing its journey through interstellar space. It will be lighter, altered, transformed by its brief passage through the neighborhood of our star. Changed as all travelers are changed, by the landscapes through which they pass, by the forces they encounter, by the warmth and light that touch them, however briefly, along their journey. Scientists call this process sublimation, the direct transition from solid to gas without passing through a liquid state. But perhaps there is a metaphorical sublimation happening as well, a transformation of something hidden and potential into something expressed and visible. A metamorphosis from traveler to storyteller, from object to event, from thing to experience. Perhaps this is why we have always been drawn to comets, because they embody transformation itself, because they remind us that even the most ancient frozen things can change, can express, can become something new under the right circumstances, that no state is permanent, that all forms are temporary. That beauty often arises precisely at the boundary between persistence and dissolution. The coma grows larger as 3IR Atlas approaches the Sun, a diffuse cloud of gas and dust extending thousands of miles around the solid nucleus. This is not an atmosphere in the planetary sense, not a layer of gas held in place by gravity, but a much more tenuous cloud, constantly replenished from below as solar radiation heats the surface, constantly streaming outward under the influence of solar wind and radiation pressure. A breath that never ends, an exhalation that continues for weeks or months as the comet moves through the inner solar system. Within this cloud, complex chemistry occurs. Molecules break apart and recombine. Compounds transform from one state to another. Ions form and interact with the magnetic fields carried by the solar wind. A dynamic laboratory of sorts, visible across millions of miles, offering insights into the composition of this interstellar visitor and, by extension, into the environment in which it formed. Into the materials available in another stellar system, perhaps similar to our own in its early stages of formation, perhaps radically different in ways we have yet to understand. Astronomers measure, photograph, and compare. They plot the comet's path with precision that would astonish our ancestors. They analyze the light reflecting from its surface and the gas in its tail to determine its composition, its age, its story. They collect data points and transform them into models, into predictions, into understanding. But beneath this scientific approach lies something older, the simple human desire to comprehend the visitor, to welcome the stranger, to make meaning of the unexpected arrival. To incorporate it, however briefly, into our understanding of the world, into our sense of what is possible, what is out there, what might someday be encountered, for none can truly define what it means for something so old, so distant, to suddenly appear in our skies. There is science in its motion, the predictable effects of gravity and radiation, the well-understood physics of orbits and illumination. But there is poetry in its timing, in the brief window of human history during which we have developed the tools and knowledge to recognize it for what it is. To know that it comes from beyond our solar system, to understand its journey in terms that would have been incomprehensible to our ancestors, even as they marveled at the same celestial spectacle. Had 3I Atlas arrived a century earlier, we might have recognized it as unusual, but would have lacked the technological capacity to determine its interstellar origin. Had it arrived a century later, who knows what additional insights we might glean from it, with more advanced instruments, more sophisticated models, more extensive understanding of the interstellar medium. Its arrival in our particular moment feels significant. Though we know this is likely an illusion, a human tendency to find meaning in coincidence. The timing feels significant. Though we know this is likely an illusion, a human tendency to find meaning in coincidence. 3I Atlas does not know or care about the state of our civilization, about our recent awakening to the vastness of space, about our growing awareness of our cosmic context. It has not arranged its million-year journey to arrive at this particular moment in our development. And yet here it is now, when we have just begun to reach beyond our own world, when we have just started to understand our place among the stars, when we have just developed the capacity to recognize a visitor from another star system. There is no causality in this convergence, but perhaps there is still meaning to be found. Not meaning inherent in the event itself, but meaning we create through our response to it, through our attention, our wonder, our incorporation of this cosmic visitor into our evolving understanding of our place in the universe. Perhaps there is a kind of grace in such convergences, a recognition that while the universe operates according to physical laws rather than narrative logic, these laws occasionally produce events that resonate with human meaning-making, that speak to our need for connection, for context, for significance beyond our brief individual lives. The arrival of 3I Atlas in this particular moment of human history may be coincidence in cosmic terms, but in human terms, it feels like a kind of gift. opportunity for expanded awareness, a chance to remember collectively that we exist within a much larger context than our daily concerns might suggest, that we are participants in a cosmic story that extends far beyond our planet, our solar system, our brief moment of technological civilization. Somewhere, a scientist sits awake at night, her telescope humming softly in the background. The observatory dome is open to the stars, a perfect circle of darkness against which the faint lights of the cosmos shine with ancient patience. On her monitor, data flows in a steady stream. Numbers, coordinates, measurements that describe the slow progress of 3I Atlas across our inner solar system. She has been tracking it for months now, watching as it gradually brightened. As its trajectory refined itself with each new observation, as its true nature revealed itself in the subtle patterns of its motion and light, she knows the scientific significance of this object, the insights it might offer into the composition of other stellar systems, into the mechanisms of interstellar travel, into the physics of cometary behavior under the influence of solar radiation. But tonight, in the quiet hours before dawn, something more personal stirs within her. A sense of connection that transcends the professional, the academic, the purely rational. Outside, the world sleeps. Cities pulse with their own rhythms, unaware of the celestial drama playing out above the thin shell of our atmosphere. But here, in this quiet space between earth and sky, a human mind reaches outward, following the path of something that has traveled farther than all human journeys combined. "You came so far," she whispers, almost unconsciously, her voice barely audible above the soft electronic hum of her instruments. The words feel strangely intimate, as though she is speaking not to an inanimate object of ice and dust, but to a memory finally returning home, to a story finding its audience after eons of silence, to a journey completing itself in the simple act of being witnessed. There is something deeply personal in this moment, this quiet communion between observer and observed, this brief intersection between human consciousness and cosmic journey. Perhaps this is what we have always sought in our stargazing. Not just knowledge or prediction or control, but connection, a sense that we are not merely isolated observers of the universe, but participants in its ongoing narrative, that our seeing is itself a kind of relationship, that our attention is a form of acknowledgement, that in our witnessing, something meaningful occurs, a completing of the circuit between the cosmos and consciousness, between the physical processes that shape matter and energy across vast distances, and the awareness that, for this brief moment, recognizes these processes and incorporates them into understanding, into meaning, into experience. This connection exists not just for the professional astronomer with her sophisticated instruments, but for anyone who looks upward with attention and wonder. For the amateur with her backyard telescope, training it on the faint smudge of light that is 3I Atlas. For the naked eye observer, perhaps not even able to see the comet directly, but knowing it is there somewhere in the darkness above. For the child learning for the first time that objects can travel between stars, that the boundaries of our solar system are permeable, that the universe is vaster and more interconnected than previously imagined. Each act of attention is a kind of relationship, each moment of awareness a form of connection across the emptiness of space. The media call it a threat, a spectacle, an event. Headlines speak of close approaches and near misses, their language designed to provoke anxiety or excitement. Images show artists' renderings of dramatic encounters, of glowing tales stretching across star-filled skies. Commentators debate its significance, its danger, its meaning, each bringing their own fears and hopes to the interpretation. Is it a harbinger of disaster, a scientific opportunity, a spiritual sign? The noise of human meaning-making grows, louder as the comet draws nearer, as though we cannot help but project our concerns onto this cosmic canvas, as though every celestial visitor must somehow be about us, our fears, our hopes, our future. There is something revealing in this response, this tendency to interpret cosmic events in human terms, to see in the movements of distant objects reflections of our own concerns, our own narratives, our own sense of significance. Perhaps this is inevitable, given our nature as meaning-making creatures. Perhaps it is even valuable, this translation of the cosmic into the human, this incorporation of the vastness into our limited understanding. But there is also something to be gained from the opposite perspective, from the recognition that 3E Atlas exists independently of our interpretations, that its journey would continue whether or not we were here to witness it, that the cosmos operates according to its own principles, its own timescales, its own patterns of movement and transformation that may or may not align with our human concerns. But out in the stillness between planets, 3E Atlas knows nothing of this clamor. It feels no fear or fame. It carries no message beyond its own existence, its own composition, its own path through space and time. It simply follows the gravity it was given, the forces that shape its journey just as surely as different forces shape our own. Like a dream moving toward the morning, it proceeds with the inevitable grace of natural law, indifferent to our interpretations, yet somehow made more significant by our capacity to wonder, by our ability to recognize in its passage something worthy of attention, of study, of contemplation, by our tendency to find in the movements of distant objects reflections of our own journey, our own questions, our own search for meaning in a vast and largely indifferent cosmos. In the silent space through which 3E Atlas travels, there is no air to carry sound, no medium to transmit the vibrations we experience as noise. There is only the vacuum, the near-perfect emptiness that exists between worlds. Within this silence, a different kind of music unfolds, the mathematics of orbital mechanics, the physics of sublimation, the chemistry of outgassing and tail formation. These processes follow their own rhythms, their own cadences, their own harmonies of cause and effect, a cosmic symphony inaudible to human ears, yet somehow perceptible to human understanding. A pattern recognized not through sound but through measurement, calculation, observation, through the extension of our senses via technology, via mathematics, via the collective enterprise of science that allows us to perceive what would otherwise remain beyond our awareness. Perhaps this is the true relationship between humanity and the cosmos, this tension between the universe's indifference and our insistent meaning-making, between the cold equations of orbital mechanics and the warm narratives we create to make sense of our place within them. The comet does not need our stories to complete its journey, but perhaps we need its journey to complete our stories, to remind us that we exist within a context far larger and more ancient than our brief civilization, that we are temporary witnesses to processes that began long before us and will continue long after, that our significance lies not in our centrality to the cosmic narrative, but in our capacity to recognize and appreciate the narrative itself, to find in the movements of distant objects not just data points but poetry, not just physical processes but meaning, not just matter and energy but beauty. We watch the numbers change, predicting how close 3E Atlas will come to our world. Astronomers calculate its minimum distance, its velocity, its angle of approach. The equations feel cold and precise, mathematical descriptions of a dance between gravity and momentum, between solar radiation and icy mass. But behind these calculations lies a very human pulse, that same curiosity that once led our ancestors to light fires against the darkness, to build instruments that could extend their vision, to name the patterns they saw in the night sky. That same desire to understand, to predict, to situate ourselves within a comprehensible framework, to transform the seemingly random movements of celestial objects into a coherent narrative within which we can locate ourselves, our fears, our hopes, our brief moment of consciousness within the vastness. These calculations are a kind of magic, a technology of prediction that would have seemed miraculous to our ancestors, the ability to determine, months or even years in advance, exactly where a distant object will be at a specific moment, to model its behavior with such precision that we can confidently state when it will reach perihelion, how bright it will appear from Earth, whether it will be visible to the naked eye or only through telescopes. This predictive capacity represents one of humanity's greatest achievements, the development of a mathematical framework that allows us to understand and anticipate the movements of objects millions of miles away, moving through space at thousands of miles per hour. A framework that connects our limited earthbound perspective to the vast dynamic processes of the cosmos. The predictions vary slightly as new data arrives. As 3i Atlas responds to the complex gravitational field of our solar system, as it begins to shed mass through sublimation, small adjustments become necessary. But the broad strokes remain clear. It will pass through our inner solar system, relatively close in cosmic terms, though still millions of miles from Earth itself. Close enough, perhaps, to be visible to the naked eye for those who know where and when to look. A momentary brightening against the eternal backdrop, a visitor briefly illuminated in the warmth of our star, before continuing its endless journey outward. A temporary addition to our night sky, joining the more familiar patterns of stars and planets that have guided human navigation, marked our seasons and inspired our mythologies for thousands of years. There is something profound in these calculations, in humanity's ability to predict the motion of a body moving through space at thousands of miles per hour, millions of miles away. In our capacity to understand the invisible forces that guide it, to model its behavior, to anticipate its arrival and departure with precision that would seem magical to our ancestors. This is a kind of power, though not the power to control or alter the comet's path, rather the power to comprehend, to situate ourselves within the cosmic narrative, to recognize patterns and processes that extend far beyond our individual lives, our human history, our earthly concerns, to feel, if only for a moment, that we understand our place within the vastness, that we are not merely adrift in an incomprehensible cosmos, but participants in a universe whose patterns and processes, while complex, are at least partially accessible to human understanding. And yet, for all our mathematical precision, there remains uncertainty. Comets are not merely obedient masses responding predictably to gravitational forces. They are complex, dynamic objects, changing as they approach the sun, shedding material, sometimes fragmenting in ways that cannot be perfectly foreseen. This uncertainty is not a failure of science, but a recognition of complexity, of the limits of prediction, of the way in which even the most deterministic universe contains elements of surprise and transformation, of the inevitable gap between our models, no matter how sophisticated, and the reality they attempt to describe. Perhaps there is wisdom in this recognition, a humility before the complexity of the cosmos, an acknowledgement that our understanding, while remarkable in its scope and power, remains incomplete, that the universe retains its capacity to surprise us, to challenge our assumptions, to expand our awareness beyond its current boundaries. Some say 3i Atlas might break apart before reaching perihelion, its closest approach to the sun. The warmth might prove too much for its ancient, fragile structure, causing it to fragment into smaller pieces that would continue along similar but distinct paths. The history of cometary observation is filled with such events, moments when a single object becomes multiple objects, when a coherent structure disintegrates under the influence of solar heating, gravitational stress, or rotational forces. The comet Shoemaker-Levy 9 famously broke into multiple fragments before colliding with Jupiter in 1994, creating a string of impacts that left visible scars on the giant planet's atmosphere. Comet Ison, once predicted to become the comet of the century, disintegrated as it passed close to the Sun in 2013, its fragile structure unable to withstand the extreme conditions of its perihelion passage. These events, while disappointing to those hoping for spectacular displays, are themselves significant scientific opportunities, chances to observe the internal structure of comets, to study the processes of fragmentation and dissolution, to better understand the forces that shape these ancient travelers. Others say it might hold together, passing close enough to Earth that we could see it shimmer at twilight, a faint smudge of light visible even through the glow of our cities, a celestial visitor briefly accessible to ordinary human perception. This outcome would create a different kind of opportunity, a moment of collective attention, of shared cosmic awareness, of connection between everyday human experience and the vast movements of interstellar objects, a chance for people who might not otherwise think about astronomy, about cosmic timescales, about the space between stars, to lift their gaze upward and recognize, if only briefly, that we exist within a much larger context than our daily concerns might suggest, that we are surrounded by processes and patterns that transcend our brief lives, our limited perspectives, our human-centered narratives, But perhaps both outcomes are the same in their significance. Both remind us how fragile, how beautiful, and how brief cosmic encounters can be. Both speak to the temporary nature of all structures, all forms, all gatherings of matter into coherent wholes. Whether it remains intact or dissolves into fragments, 3i Atlas embodies the truth that nothing lasts forever. That all objects, all beings, all worlds exist for their moment before transforming into something else. That beauty often lies precisely in this impermanence, in the momentary alignment of conditions that allows something to exist, to express, to be witnessed before changing into something else entirely. Perhaps this is the deepest message carried by interstellar visitors, not information about distant star systems or the chemistry of other worlds, but a reminder of the fundamental impermanence of all things. The beauty of the transient, the significance of the momentary, the value of paying attention to what is here now, knowing it will not remain unchanged. The human mind struggles with such timescales, with the recognition that 3i Atlas has likely been traveling for millions of years and will continue its journey for millions more. That it existed long before our species appeared on Earth and will continue to exist long after our current civilization has transformed into something unrecognizable or disappeared entirely. That its brief passage through our solar system represents less than a heartbeat in cosmic time, less than a blink in the lifetime of a star, less than a footstep in a journey across galaxies. This perspective can feel overwhelming, even frightening, a reminder of our own brevity, our own smallness against the vastness of space and time. But perhaps there is also a kind of liberation in this recognition, a release from the artificial urgency of much human activity, a reminder that our challenges and concerns, while real and significant to us, exist within a much larger context, a context that continues regardless of our momentary troubles, our political divisions, our economic fluctuations, our social conflicts. There is a kind of comfort in this perspective, a recognition that the challenges and concerns that occupy our daily lives are set within a much larger context, that the universe continues its rhythms regardless of our momentary troubles, that there is a scale of time and space within which our urgent matters become small, not in a way that diminishes their importance to us, but in a way that perhaps helps us carry them more lightly, more gracefully, with greater perspective, with the recognition that we are part of something much larger than our individual concerns, our societal conflicts, our species' brief moment in cosmic history, that we participate, however briefly, in patterns and processes that extend far beyond us in every direction, in space, in time, in complexity, in significance. This perspective does not invalidate our human concerns, our quest for meaning, for connection, for understanding, for justice, for beauty. It does not suggest that our brief lives are unimportant or that our struggles lack significance. Rather, it places these concerns within a larger context. It reminds us that we are not the whole of reality, but a part of it, that our story is not the only story, but one among many, that our perspective is not the only perspective, but one way of experiencing a much larger and more complex reality than any single viewpoint can encompass. Perhaps there is wisdom in holding both awareness simultaneously, the recognition of our cosmic insignificance alongside the affirmation of our human values, concerns, and experiences. The knowledge that we are dust in cosmic terms, alongside the certainty that our brief moment of consciousness, of attention, of wonder, matters in ways we cannot fully articulate, but nonetheless feel with conviction. In every particle of dust that 3i Atlas sheds as it approaches the sun, there lies the memory of another star, another time. Each microscopic grain carries within its structure information about the environment in which it formed, the temperature, the pressure, the elements available. Each fragment glows for a heartbeat as it catches the sunlight, becoming briefly visible before continuing on its own trajectory, its own journey through the solar system. A reminder that even the smallest things can travel farther than we ever will. That significance is not measured in size but in persistence, in endurance through time and space, in the capacity to carry information, to embody history, to connect distant regions of the cosmos through physical presence, through the simple fact of having been there, then here, and eventually elsewhere. These particles are time travelers of a sort, physical embodiments of a past we can never directly observe, messengers from epochs and regions beyond our reach. The atoms that compose them were forged in stellar furnaces, ejected in supernovae explosions, gathered into the protoplanetary disk of another star, incorporated into the structure of a comet, and eventually released into our solar system as 3I Atlas responds to the warmth of our sun. A journey not just through space but through time, through transformations of state and structure, through processes of creation, destruction, and recreation that define the cosmic cycle of matter and energy across the vastness of space and the depths of time. Scientists dream of capturing these particles, of bringing them into their laboratories for analysis, of reading the cosmic history written in their chemistry and structure. For unlike the meteorites that sometimes fall to Earth, these interstellar grains have never been part of our solar system before. They carry information about other stars, other planetary systems, other regions of our galaxy. They are messengers in the most literal sense, physical embodiments of elsewhere, tangible connections to cosmic realms beyond our reach. Their isotopic ratios, their mineral structures, their trace element compositions, all of these would tell stories about environments we can otherwise only study from a distance. Through the light that reaches our telescopes, through the models we construct, based on our observations of our own solar system and others, through the theories we develop to explain the patterns we detect across cosmic distances. But even without such direct examination, these particles speak to us. The way they scatter light tells us something about their size and composition. The rate at which they are expelled from the comet tells us about its structure and response to solar heating. The patterns they form in space tell us about the forces acting upon them. We read these signs like a text written in the language of physics and chemistry, a universal grammar that connects all matter throughout the cosmos, that transcends the boundaries between stellar systems, between galaxies, between the past, present, and future of cosmic evolution. A language we have only recently learned to decipher, yet one that has shaped the universe since its earliest moments. Since the first atoms formed in the cooling aftermath of the Big Bang, since the first stars ignited in the primordial darkness, since the first planets condensed from the disks of dust and gas surrounding newborn suns, there is wonder in this connection, in the recognition that the same physical laws that govern these distant particles also govern our own bodies, our own world, that despite the vast differences in our circumstances, in our histories, in our forms, we and the comet participate in the same reality, follow the same rules, exist within the same framework of natural law. The carbon atoms in our cells and the carbon atoms in 3I Atlas were forged in the same type of stellar furnace, follow the same chemical behaviors, respond to the same electromagnetic forces. The water molecules that make up so much of our bodies, and the water ice that likely forms a significant portion of the comet's mass, share the same structure, the same properties, the same significance as the fundamental solvent of life as we know it. We are made of the same stuff, this visitor and ourselves, different only in configuration, in temperature, in the temporary forms we have assumed in this brief moment of cosmic time. Perhaps this is the deepest message carried by interstellar visitors, not information about other stars or planetary systems, but a reminder of our fundamental kinship with all matter in the universe. A kinship often forgotten in the busy particularity of human affairs, in our tendency to see ourselves as separate from nature, from the cosmos, from the physical processes that shape all existence, in our focus on the differences that distinguish us from other beings, other forms, other expressions of the same fundamental reality that encompasses all things. 3I Atlas reminds us, through its mere existence, that we are not separate from the cosmic story but embedded within it, that we are not merely observers of natural processes but expressions of them, that we and the comet and the stars themselves are all participants in the same ongoing narrative of cosmic evolution, of transformation, of the endless cycle of matter and energy across space and time. The Earth turns, largely unaware of the celestial visitor arcing through the solar system. Cities pulse with their human rhythms, lights flickering on and off, vehicles flowing through streets, data streaming through networks. Oceans breathe their tidal patterns, drawing in and releasing with ancient patience. Forests grow in slow silence. Creatures large and small go about their brief, urgent lives. And over them all a faint traveler crosses quietly. Unseen by most, its presence known primarily to those who have made it their business to watch the sky, to notice the subtle changes in the cosmic panorama that surrounds our small blue world, to recognize the significance of a light that appears where no light was before, that moves unlike the familiar patterns of planets and stars. That tells a story of interstellar journey and cosmic connection across unimaginable distances. Most humans will never see Three-Eye Atlas with their own eyes. Even at its brightest, it will likely remain visible only through telescopes for all but the most dedicated observers in the darkest locations. Its presence in our sky will be subtle, technical, accessible primarily through instruments and expertise rather than direct perception. And yet, something changes when we become aware of such a visitor. Some subtle shift occurs in our relationship to our own world, to the sky above us, to the cosmos beyond. A momentary widening of perspective, a brief recognition of the larger context within which our lives unfold. Even for those who never physically see Three-Eye Atlas, who know of it only through news reports or social media mentions, some seed of cosmic awareness is planted. Some reminder that we exist not only within our human structures and systems, but within a vast, dynamic universe that occasionally sends messengers to our doorstep. There is a quality of attention that such events invite, a looking upward, outward, beyond, a temporary lifting of our gaze from the immediate concerns of daily life to the larger rhythms of cosmic time, from the human scale to the interstellar, from the urgent to the eternal, from the particular to the universal. Perhaps this is their greatest gift to us, not scientific data or spectacular displays, but this shift in perspective, this momentary alignment of human consciousness with celestial movement. This brief recognition of our place within the cosmic order, this reminder that we are surrounded by processes and patterns that transcend our brief lives, our limited perspectives, our human-centered narratives, that we exist within a context far larger, far older, far more complex than our daily experience might suggest. When astronomers first detected Three-Eye Atlas, it appeared as nothing more than an anomalous data point, a slight deviation in the expected patterns, a minor mystery requiring closer investigation. As more observations accumulated, as telescopes around the world and in orbit trained their electronic eyes on this faint moving light, the data gradually revealed something extraordinary, an object that originated not within our solar system, but from the depths of interstellar space. From another star system entirely, perhaps from a planet formation process around a distant sun, or the disruption of a far-off Oort cloud, or some other cosmic mechanism we have not yet imagined. An object that has been traveling through the void between stars for millions, perhaps billions of years, before its brief passage through our neighborhood. An emissary from elsewhere, a traveler bearing information about regions of space humans will not visit for generations to come, if ever. The physical reality of Three-Eye Atlas is humble enough, a small, frozen body composed primarily of ice, dust, and simple compounds, not fundamentally different from the comets that originated within our own solar system, that have been visiting our skies throughout human history. Its distinction lies not in its composition, but in its origin, its trajectory, its status as visitor rather than resident. In the story, it tells through its very existence a story of cosmic interconnection, of matter in constant motion, of the permeability of boundaries we once thought absolute. A story that challenges our conceptual categories, our definitions of here and there, of what belongs and what doesn't, of the very notion of cosmic locality. For most of human history, we understood the heavens as a closed system, a series of concentric spheres centered on Earth, or later, as a planetary system orbiting our sun, isolated from other stars by vast empty reaches of space. The discovery of interstellar visitors like Three-Eye Atlas transforms this understanding. It reveals a universe more fluid, more interconnected, more dynamic than our ancestors could have imagined. A universe in which matter regularly travels between star systems, in which the boundaries between here and elsewhere are permeable, in which no region of space exists in true isolation from the rest. This knowledge fundamentally alters our cosmic geography, our sense of place, our understanding of the context within which our planet, our species, our individual lives unfold. For most of human history, the sky was our constant companion, our calendar, our navigation system, our mythic canvas. Our ancestors lived with a direct awareness of celestial movements and patterns. They planned their planting and harvesting, by the positions of stars and planets. They navigated across oceans by the constancy of the North Star and the predictable paths of familiar constellations. They structured their religious ceremonies and cultural practices around solstices and equinoxes, lunar cycles and planetary alignments. The sky was not separate from human affairs, but intimately connected to them, a source of practical information, of spiritual significance, of cultural continuity across generations. Evidence of this ancient relationship can be found in archaeological sites around the world, in the alignment of Neolithic stone circles with solstice sunrises, in Egyptian temples oriented to capture the light of specific stars on particular dates, in Mayan observatories tracking Venus, in Polynesian navigational techniques using star patterns to cross vast oceanic distances. This knowledge was not merely practical, but deeply integrated into cultural systems of meaning, into religious cosmologies, into mythic narratives that explained humanity's place within a larger order. The appearance of comets in particular often carried special significance, sometimes seen as omens, sometimes as messengers, sometimes as manifestations of divine presence or cosmic disturbance requiring human response. These responses varied widely across cultures and time periods, from fear and propitiation to celebration and wonder, from careful observation and record-keeping to elaborate rituals designed to maintain cosmic harmony. The Chinese astronomical records dating back over 2,000 years describe comets with remarkable precision, noting their positions, their movements, their physical appearance. Medieval European chronicles often interpreted comets as divine signs, their meanings entangled with earthly politics and religious conflicts. Indigenous American traditions incorporated celestial events into complex calendrical systems and cultural narratives. The diversity of these responses reveals both the universality of human attention to the sky and the cultural specificity of the meanings assigned to its patterns and disruptions. Modern life has largely separated us from this intimate relationship with the celestial. Our illuminated cities erase all but the brightest stars from view. Our schedules follow clocks rather than the sun and moon. Our attention focuses on screens rather than the slowly turning dome above. We navigate by GPS satellites rather than stellar positions, plan our activities by digital calendars rather than lunar phases, structure our societies around economic cycles rather than celestial ones. This separation has brought many benefits: a liberation from the constraints of natural rhythms, an expansion of human activity into the night hours, a precision in measurement and coordination impossible in earlier times. But it has also diminished something valuable: a direct embodied awareness of our cosmic context, a regular reminder of our place within larger patterns and processes that transcend human control and human timescales. Yet something ancient in us still responds to these cosmic visitors. Some dormant awareness reawakens, however briefly, when we hear of objects crossing the vast distances between stars to enter our neighborhood. Perhaps this response reflects an evolutionary heritage, the thousands of generations during which our ancestors lived in direct relationship with the sky, their survival depending in part on their attention to celestial patterns and changes. Perhaps it reflects something more philosophical, a recognition, however intuitive or unconscious, of our fundamental connection to cosmic processes, of our embeddedness within a reality far larger than our human-constructed environments might suggest, of our participation in a narrative that extends far beyond the boundaries of our individual lives, our human history, our earthly concerns. It's strange how something so vast, so distant, can make us feel simultaneously small yet deeply connected. As we contemplate the journey of 3i Atlas, millions of years crossing the void between stars, following the subtle gravitational contours of interstellar space, our own concerns can seem momentary, our own journeys microscopic in comparison. Our longest human voyages, our greatest explorations, our most ambitious migrations, all are dwarfed by the simple, silent passage of this frozen wanderer through the emptiness between stars. Our most ancient human structures, our oldest continuous traditions, our longest historical memories, all are recent developments compared to the duration of its journey across the cosmic ocean. The trajectory of 3i Atlas tells a story of almost incomprehensible timescales. If we assume it originated from the nearest star system, Alpha Centauri, its journey to reach us would have taken approximately 40,000 years, even traveling at speeds exceeding 25 kilometers per second. But it likely came from much farther away, perhaps hundreds or thousands of light years distant, requiring millions of years of travel through interstellar space. During this time, humanity evolved from early hominids to modern Homo sapiens. We developed language, art, agriculture, cities, writing, mathematics, science, technology. We spread across continents, created and destroyed empires, built our global civilization, all while this small frozen object silently traversed the void between stars, unaware and unaffected by the dramas unfolding on our distant planet. This vast discrepancy in timescales challenges our human-centered perspective. It reminds us that we exist within processes that long preceded our emergence as a species and will continue long after our current civilization passes into history. That the universe operates on multiple temporal scales simultaneously, from the nanoseconds of subatomic interactions to the billions of years of stellar evolution, from the milliseconds of neural firing to the geological epochs of planetary transformation. That our human experience occupies a narrow band within this spectrum of cosmic time, neither the fastest nor the slowest, neither the briefest nor the most enduring, but simply one of many rhythms unfolding within the cosmic symphony. Yet rather than diminishing us, this recognition somehow expands our sense of belonging, of participation in the cosmic narrative. It reminds us that we too are travelers of a sort, that our planet, our solar system, our galaxy are all in constant motion through space, that we are not static observers of cosmic processes, but participants in them, that our very existence is the result of a journey, of elements forged in distant stars, scattered through space in supernova explosions, gathered into our solar system, incorporated into our planet, and eventually organized into the complex structures of living organisms, of ecosystems, of consciousness itself. We too are expressions of cosmic journeying, different in scale, in duration, in awareness, yet similar in our fundamental nature as temporary gatherings of matter, an energy moving through space and time according to the same physical laws that guide the comet's path, the atoms that compose. Our bodies have their own extraordinary histories. The carbon in our cells was created in the hearts of stars that lived and died before our sun was born. The oxygen we breathe was likely forged in massive stars, whose explosive death scattered these life-enabling elements across space. The iron in our blood once existed in stellar cores, released through cataclysmic supernovae that seeded the interstellar medium with the building blocks of future worlds. The hydrogen in our water molecules dates back to the earliest moments after the Big Bang, having traveled through countless temporary forms before becoming part of our physical structure. We are quite literally composed of well-traveled matter. Our bodies incorporate atoms that have journeyed across interstellar distances, that have participated in cosmic processes spanning billions of years, that have been part of other stars, other planets, perhaps even other living systems before becoming part of us. This material connection to cosmic processes gives deeper meaning to our contemplation of interstellar visitors. Like through its atlas, we recognize in them not just objects of scientific interest, but distant relatives of sorts, collections of matter following their own trajectories through space and time, shaped by the same fundamental forces that govern our own existence. Their journeys mirror our own in ways both literal and metaphorical, connecting us to a larger narrative of cosmic unfolding that transcends the boundaries of our individual lives, our human history, our planetary home. For the comet's path mirrors our own in so many ways, wandering through space and time, responding to forces both visible and invisible, following a trajectory neither entirely random nor entirely predetermined, drawn by gravity, pushed by radiation, shaped by encounters both gentle and violent, moving always towards something, though the destination constantly shifts with each new influence. Neither fully in control nor fully passive, but somewhere in between, responding to the universe even as we help create it through our movements, our choices, our very existence. There is wisdom in this parallel, a recognition that we too are travelers, that we too follow paths shaped by forces we do not fully comprehend, that we too are simultaneously insignificant and essential to the cosmic story. That our journey, like that of Three-Eye Atlas, matters not because of its destination, but because of its very occurrence. Its brief luminous arc through time and space, the physics of the comet's journey, provides rich metaphorical material for understanding our own existence. As it approaches our sun, the frozen volatiles on its surface begin to sublimate, transforming directly from solid to gas, creating the characteristic coma and tail that make comets visible from Earth. This process of revelation through proximity to a source of energy parallels our own transformations when we encounter sources of illumination, whether physical, intellectual, or spiritual. We too become more visible, more expressive, more fully ourselves when we approach sources of energy that activate our potential. We too leave traces of our passage that may be visible to distant observers long after we have moved on to other regions of our life's journey. The comet's trajectory is shaped by numerous forces, primarily the gravitational pull of the sun and planets, but also radiation pressure, outgassing from its own surface, and encounters with other objects along its path. Similarly, our lives follow courses influenced by forces both external and internal, by the social, economic, and cultural environments we inhabit, by our biological inheritances and psychological tendencies, by the choices we make and the random events we encounter. Neither fully determined nor fully free, we navigate through existence responding to influences that range from the cosmic to the quantum, from the collective to the deeply personal. Perhaps this is the deepest kinship between us and the comet, this shared experience of journeying, of moving through space and time according to both the forces that act upon us and the qualities inherent in our being. The comet's path is determined by its mass, its velocity, its composition, its response to radiation, all interacting with the gravitational fields, the solar wind, the cosmic rays it encounters on its journey. Our paths, both as individuals and as a species, are similarly shaped by the interaction between our nature, our biology, our psychology, our inherited tendencies, and our environment, both physical and cultural. Neither fully determined nor fully free, we move through our lives responding to influences both external and internal, both conscious and unconscious, creating our paths even as we discover them, finding our way even as we make it, both traveler and journey simultaneously. The hyperbolic trajectory of Three-Eye Atlas through our solar system, approaching from interstellar space, accelerating as it nears the sun, then receding again toward the cosmic void, resembles in some ways the arc of a human life. We too emerge from mystery, gradually accelerate through youth into the full energy of adulthood, then eventually return to mystery as our lives conclude. We too experience periods of increasing intensity, of maximum proximity to the sources of energy that illuminate our existence, followed by gradual distancing, decreasing velocity, return to cooler, quieter states of being. The mathematical elegance of orbital mechanics, with its perfect balance of kinetic and potential energy, offers a model for understanding cycles of engagement and withdrawal, of intensity and rest, of gathering and scattering that characterize both cosmic and human journeys. In the laboratories and observatories, the chatter gradually grows softer. As the initial excitement of discovery gives way to the patient work of observation and analysis, scientists begin to reflect, not just calculate. They share coffee during late-night observation sessions, gazing upward through domes open to the stars, their conversations turning philosophical as the hours stretch toward dawn. What if Three-Eye Atlas isn't here for anything in particular? What if its journey itself is the message? That motion, not meaning, is the true constant of the cosmos, that the universe is not a static arrangement of objects, but a dynamic process of transformation, that everything is always traveling somewhere, becoming something, participating in patterns of movement and change that constitute the fundamental nature of reality itself. The scientific investigation of Three-Eye Atlas follows protocols established through centuries of astronomical research, systematic observation, data collection, analysis, theory development, peer review, publication. Telescopes around the world and in orbit capture images across multiple wavelengths. Spectrographic analyses reveal the comet's composition, the specific ices, minerals, and compounds that constitute its physical structure. Orbital calculations trace its path backward and forward in time, connecting its brief appearance in our sky to its extended journey through interstellar space. Computer models simulate its origin, considering various star systems and formation scenarios that might explain its particular characteristics. This methodical, collaborative process represents one of humanity's greatest achievements, our development of reliable techniques for understanding phenomena beyond direct experience. Through careful observation, mathematical analysis, theoretical modeling, and empirical testing, we extend our awareness far beyond the limitations of our senses. We perceive patterns invisible to the naked eye, measure properties imperceptible to direct observation, comprehend processes that unfold over timescales exceeding human lifespans. This capacity for extended perception, for mediated understanding, for collective knowledge building across generations distinguishes our species and defines our unique relationship to cosmic processes. Yet even within this scientific approach, there remains room for wonder, for philosophical reflection, for recognition of the limits of our understanding. The data collected about 3I Atlas, however precise, cannot fully capture its significance. As representative of interstellar processes we are just beginning to comprehend, as challenge to our understanding of solar system formation and evolution, as connection to other star systems with their own planets, their own potential for life, their own unique histories of cosmic development, the comet becomes not just an object of study, but a gateway to larger questions about our place within the cosmic narrative, about the uniqueness or commonality of our own planet's history, about the potential for other sites of life, of consciousness, of technological civilization within our galaxy and beyond. The scientists who study 3I Atlas bring to their work not just technical expertise, but human curiosity, philosophical inclination, aesthetic sensitivity. They appreciate the elegance of orbital mathematics, the beauty of spectroscopic data, the philosophical implications of interstellar communication. They recognize in their subjects not just collections of matter, following physical laws, but expressions of cosmic principles that connect human understanding to universal processes. Their work transcends the dichotomy between objective analysis and subjective appreciation, integrating rigorous methodology with profound wonder at the phenomena they study. In this integration, they exemplify a distinctly human approach to cosmic understanding, simultaneously analytical and contemplative, technical and philosophical, focused on specific details while remaining open to larger implications. There is a kind of liberation in this thought, a release from the human tendency to seek purpose in all things, to assign intention where perhaps none exists, to read messages where there might be only movement. Perhaps the deepest truth embodied by this interstellar visitor is simply that the universe is in constant motion, that nothing remains forever fixed. That journey is the fundamental state of all existence, from the smallest particle to the largest galaxy. Not a journey towards some predetermined destination, but movement as an end in itself, as the essential expression of cosmic being, as the process through which the universe experiences itself, knows itself, creates itself anew in each moment, across the vastness of space and the depths of time. This perspective challenges some of our most basic assumptions about meaning, about purpose, about the nature of existence itself. It suggests a universe not structured according to narrative logic, with its beginnings, middles, and ends, its protagonists and antagonists, its conflicts and resolutions, but rather a universe of process, of transformation, of endless becoming without final destination. A universe not moving towards some ultimate conclusion, but simply moving endlessly in patterns of infinite complexity and beauty. A universe in which meaning emerges not from external design, but from internal awareness, from the capacity of conscious beings to notice, to wonder, to find significance in the movements and patterns they observe, to create meaning through attention rather than discovering meaning inherent in the structure of things. Human cultures have typically organized their understanding of existence through narrative frameworks, through stories with coherent plots, identifiable characters, clear causal relationships, moral lessons. These narratives serve essential psychological and social functions. They help us organize our experience, anticipate future developments, coordinate our actions, transmit cultural knowledge across generations. They give shape and meaning to what might otherwise appear as random, disconnected events. They create coherence, continuity, comprehensibility in our relationship to a complex, often overwhelming reality. But the universe itself may not conform to these narrative structures. It may operate according to principles that transcend storytelling logic, principles of emergence rather than design, of process rather than plot, of dynamic equilibrium rather than narrative arc. The journey of 3i Atlas through our solar system follows not a story but a trajectory, determined by the interaction of mass, velocity, gravitational fields, radiation pressure. Its origin, its passage, its eventual departure are not chapters in a cosmic narrative, but momentary configurations within ongoing processes of material transformation and energetic exchange. Its significance lies not in what it symbolizes or represents, but in what it is, a physical expression of interstellar dynamics, a temporary gathering of matter following its path through space and time, according to fundamental physical principles. And yet, even in this recognition of purposelessness, we find a kind of purpose, a meaning that emerges not from intention, but from attention, from our capacity to witness, to observe, to wonder. Perhaps this is our unique contribution to the cosmic narrative, not our physical impact, which is minuscule on the galactic scale, but our consciousness, our awareness, our ability to notice the comet's passing and find in it something worthy of contemplation, something beautiful, something meaningful precisely because we choose to give it meaning, because we direct our attention toward it, incorporate it into our understanding, translate its physical movements into human terms that expand our awareness beyond its previous boundaries. This capacity for meaning creation through conscious attention distinguishes us within the cosmic community of objects and processes. It enables us to transform physical events into experiences, data points into insights, patterns of matter and energy into aesthetically and philosophically significant phenomena. This transformation does not alter the physical reality of what we observe. 3i Atlas continues on its trajectory regardless of whether humans notice or interpret its passage, but it creates a layer of meaning, of significance, of value that would not exist without our conscious engagement, a dimension of reality that emerges through the interaction between human awareness and cosmic process. A completion of sorts, though not one the universe requires. The cosmos does not need us to notice it, to name it, to find meaning in its patterns and processes. It would continue its endless transformations, with or without human awareness, human interpretation, human response. And yet, something is added to the cosmic story through our witnessing. Something emerges through the intersection of human consciousness with non-human processes. A completion of sorts, though not one the universe requires, a recognition, a response, an incorporation into meaning-making that transforms physical events into experience, into understanding, into appreciation. Perhaps this is one definition of consciousness itself, this capacity to transform the physical into the experiential, to add layers of meaning, of significance, of value to the raw data of existence. There is a reciprocity in this relationship between the cosmos that shapes us through its processes and the consciousness that perceives the cosmos through its attention. We are simultaneously products of cosmic evolution and producers of cosmic meaning, shaped by forces that long preceded our emergence and shapers of interpretations that transform those forces into meaningful patterns. This dual role, as both created and creator, as both effect and cause, as both receiver and generator of cosmic significance, defines our unique position within the universal processes we inhabit. It suggests a relationship to reality that transcends simple subject-object distinctions, that acknowledges our simultaneous embeddedness within and separation from the phenomena we observe. The appearance of 3i Atlas in our skies exemplifies this reciprocal relationship. As physical object, it influences Earth only minimally, too small, too distant to exert significant gravitational effects, to trigger tidal forces, to alter our planet's orbital parameters. Its material impact is negligible, detectable only through the most sensitive instruments. And yet, as focus of human attention, it exerts a different kind of influence, altering our awareness, expanding our understanding, shifting our perspective on our cosmic context. creating ripples of consciousness that spread outward through scientific publications, news reports, educational materials, artistic responses, philosophical reflections, generating effects that extend far beyond its physical presence in our solar system. This influence operates through multiple channels, through the technical apparatus of scientific observation, through the communication networks that distribute information, through the cultural frameworks that interpret significance, through the individual minds that contemplate meaning. Each channel transforms the physical reality of the comet into something more, into data, into knowledge, into insight, into aesthetic experience, into philosophical reflection. Each layer of transformation adds dimension, nuance, significance to what might otherwise remain simply a physical object following its trajectory through space. Each instance of human engagement creates new connections, new understandings, new appreciations that would not exist without our capacity for conscious attention. There is humility in this perspective, an acknowledgement of our smallness alongside a recognition of our significance. We are not the center of the cosmic story, but neither are we irrelevant to it. We are participants, witnesses, meaning makers, brief but essential nodes of awareness in a universe that would otherwise unfold unobserved, its beauty unappreciated, its patterns unrecognized. Perhaps this is enough to be the part of the cosmos that notices, that pays attention, that cares, that finds in the movement of distant objects across vast emptiness something worthy of contemplation, of understanding, of response, something that expands our awareness beyond its previous boundaries, something that reminds us of our cosmic context and our cosmic kinship with all that moves and shines and journeys through the infinite night. Soon it will pass. As Earth continues its own orbit around the Sun, as the celestial geometries shift, 3i Atlas will gradually recede from view. It will fade back into the dark, leaving behind only trails of data in astronomical archives, faint memories in those who witnessed its passage, subtle alterations in our collective understanding of our cosmic context. And yet those who watched will feel altered in some indefinable way, as though they too brushed against something eternal, something that connected them, however briefly, to scales of time and distance beyond ordinary human experience, something that expanded their awareness, their understanding, their sense of what is possible, what is out there, what might someday be encountered by future generations, continuing the human journey of discovery and comprehension. This is the strange gift of such cosmic encounters. They change us not through physical interaction, but through the expansion of our awareness, through the temporary alignment of our attention with movements and patterns that transcend our brief moment in cosmic history. We emerge from such experiences not with new possessions or accomplishments, but with a subtly altered perspective, a slightly different relationship to time, to space, to our own place within the universe, a deeper recognition of our participation in processes that extend far beyond the boundaries of our individual lives, our human societies, our planetary home. The scientific data collected during 3i Atlas's passage will contribute to our growing understanding of interstellar objects, their origins, their compositions, their frequency within our galactic neighborhood. It will refine our models of planet formation around other stars, of the mechanisms that eject objects from their native systems, of the physical and chemical processes that shape matter during its long journey through interstellar space. This knowledge will be incorporated into textbooks, research papers, scientific databases, becoming part of humanity's collective understanding of our cosmic context. It will inform future observations, future theories, future explorations of similar objects, creating a foundation for expanded awareness that extends beyond any individual human lifetime. But beyond these technical contributions, beyond this addition to our scientific knowledge base, the encounter leaves other legacies. It inspires artists to create works that explore cosmic themes, that engage with questions of scale and perspective, that attempt to translate the mathematical elegance of orbital dynamics into visual, auditory, or narrative forms accessible to human appreciation. It motivates writers to develop stories that connect human experience to cosmic processes, that imagine possibilities beyond our current understanding, that explore the philosophical implications of our place within an expanding, evolving universe. It encourages educators to develop new approaches to teaching astronomy, physics, chemistry, using the concrete example of Three-Eye Atlas to illustrate abstract principles of motion, gravity, thermodynamics, spectroscopy. These cultural responses to the comet's passage, scientific, artistic, educational, philosophical, collectively shape how we understand ourselves in relation to cosmic processes. They influence not just what we know, but how we know it. Not just what we see, but how we see it. Not just what we think, but how we think about our place within the larger patterns and processes of universal evolution. They form part of the invisible architecture of meaning, within which all our more visible actions and decisions unfold. They help determine what we value, what we protect, what we create, what we pass on to future generations. These shifts in perspective may seem subtle, even trivial when measured against the immediate concerns of daily life, the needs of our bodies, the demands of our relationships, the structures of our societies, the challenges of our shared human existence. And yet they shape our responses to these immediate concerns in profound ways. They influence how we understand ourselves, how we relate to others, how we conceive of our role in the larger story of life on Earth and beyond. They help determine what we value, what we protect, what we create, what we pass on to future generations. They form part of the invisible architecture of meaning, within which all our more visible actions and decisions unfold. Perhaps this is why humans have always watched the sky with such fascination. Not merely to predict seasons or navigate journeys, though these practical purposes have certainly motivated our attention, but also to experience this expansion of consciousness, this temporary transcendence of our limited perspective, this brief participation in rhythms and patterns that extend far beyond our individual lives, our human history, our earthly concerns. To remember, if only for a moment, that we exist within a context far larger, far older, far more complex than our daily experience might suggest. That we are part of something that began long before us and will continue long after. That our brief moment of awareness is simultaneously infinitesimal in cosmic terms and infinitely precious in human ones. The archaeological record reveals the antiquity of this human attention to the sky. From Paleolithic bone carvings that appear to record lunar phases, to Neolithic stone circles aligned with solstice sunrises, from Babylonian clay tablets recording planetary positions, to Mayan stelae commemorating celestial cycles, from Chinese oracle bones noting eclipses, to Polynesian star maps guiding ocean navigation. Across cultures and time periods, humans have devoted significant resources to observing, recording and responding to celestial patterns and events. This consistent attention, this persistent dedication of cultural energy to skywatching, suggests something more than mere practical utility. It points toward a deeper human need to orient ourselves within larger contexts, to situate our brief lives within longer time frames, to connect our local experience to universal patterns. Modern astronomy, with its sophisticated technologies and mathematical frameworks, continues this ancient tradition in new forms. Our radio telescopes listening for signals from distant stars, our space-based observatories collecting photons from galaxies billions of light-years away, our robotic probes visiting planets and moons within our solar system, these represent not departures from, but extensions of humanity's enduring fascination with the cosmic context of our existence. They continue our species-long project of expanding awareness beyond immediate experience, of connecting local phenomena to universal processes, of situating human consciousness within ever larger frameworks of space and time. The discovery and observation of objects like Three-Eye Atlas exemplify this continuity between ancient and modern skywatching. Though our instruments have changed, from naked eye observation to digital imaging, from stone circles to radio arrays, our essential motivation remains similar: to notice what moves above us, to understand its patterns, to incorporate its rhythms into our awareness, to expand our consciousness beyond the boundaries of direct experience, to recognize ourselves as participants in a cosmic drama that extends far beyond our individual lives, our human history, our earthly home. There is a kind of peace in this perspective, a recognition that we are neither the first nor the last to witness such visitors, that the sky has welcomed countless travelers before Three-Eye Atlas and will welcome countless more after it passes from view, that our moment of observation is itself part of a much longer human tradition of looking upward with wonder. of finding in celestial movements both meaning and mystery, of seeking in the patterns above some reflection of or response to the questions within, of attempting, through our attention to the movements of distant objects, to situate ourselves within a comprehensible framework, to locate our brief lives within a larger narrative that gives them context, significance, meaning beyond the immediate concerns of daily existence. This tradition stretches back to our earliest ancestors, who named the stars and grouped them into recognizable patterns, who tracked the movements of planets and predicted their positions, who recorded the appearances of comets and eclipses as significant events worthy of commemoration, who built structures aligned with solstices and equinoxes, with stellar risings and settings, with celestial geometries that connected earthly life to cosmic rhythms. This tradition continues today in our observatories and space agencies, our astronomical societies and citizen science projects, our planetariums and science classrooms, our literature and art inspired by cosmic themes. It persists because it answers something fundamental in human nature, our need to orient ourselves within a larger context, to understand our place in the order of things, to find meaning in our brief moment of consciousness within the vastness of space and time. Years from now, the designation 3i Atlas will linger in astronomical archives, in scientific papers, in the memories of those who followed its journey most closely. Children might hear of it in bedtime tales or classroom discussions, not as a threat or a spectacle, but as a traveler who visited once and reminded humanity of its place among the stars, of its participation in a cosmic community that extends far beyond the boundaries of our atmosphere, our planet, our solar system, a community of objects in motion, of matter and energy in endless transformation, of patterns and processes that create and dissolve and recreate the structures we observe across the vastness of space and the depths of time. These stories will change with each telling, as human stories always do. Some details will be emphasized, others forgotten. The precise orbital parameters will give way to more poetic descriptions. The scientific analyses will distill into broader insights. The complex reality of 3i Atlas will gradually transform into something simpler, yet perhaps more enduring, a symbol of cosmic connection, of interstellar journey, of the bridge between human awareness and universal process, of the strange kinship between conscious observers and unconscious matter, between temporary gatherings of atoms capable of wonder and ancient aggregations of molecules, following paths determined by physics alone, between the meaning we create through our attention and the movements that continue regardless of our witnessing. This transformation from physical event to cultural memory, from astronomical data to meaningful symbol, exemplifies a distinctly human process. We experience the world not just as a series of physical occurrences, but as a network of meaningful patterns, not just as data points, but as stories that connect past, present, and future into coherent narratives. We translate the raw material of experience into forms that can be shared, remembered, transmitted across generations. We create cultural artifacts, from scientific papers to artistic representations, from educational materials to philosophical reflections, that extend the significance of events beyond their immediate occurrence, that incorporate physical phenomena into frameworks of human meaning, that transform temporary configurations of matter and energy into enduring elements of collective consciousness. There is beauty in this transformation, in the way that physical events gradually become cultural memories, in the way that scientific observations evolve into stories we tell ourselves about our place in the universe, in the way that brief encounters leave lasting impressions, not in the physical structure of our world, but in the architecture of our understanding, our collective narrative about who we are and where we belong, our shared conception of what it means to be human in a cosmos vastly older, larger, and more complex than our ancestors could have imagined, yet a cosmos in which we nevertheless find ourselves at home, a context within which our brief lives take on meaning and significance beyond their immediate concerns and limited perspectives. This process of incorporation, of assimilating new experiences into existing frameworks while simultaneously modifying those frameworks to accommodate what they previously could not contain, characterizes human cognition at both individual and cultural levels. We expand our understanding not by simply adding new information, but by restructuring our conceptual systems to integrate new patterns, new relationships, new possibilities revealed through our encounters with reality. The passage of 3i Atlas through our solar system becomes meaningful not just as isolated event, but as catalyst for this restructuring of awareness, as occasion for rethinking our relationship to cosmic processes, to interstellar space, to the boundaries between here and elsewhere, to the timescales of universal evolution, as opportunity for expanding our collective consciousness to include dimensions of reality previously outside our awareness, our understanding, our conceptual grasp, for ultimately, this may be the most significant impact of visitors like 3i Atlas, not what they do to our physical environment, which is negligible, but what they do to our conception of ourselves, to our understanding of our context, to our sense of connection with the larger cosmic community, of which we are a small but conscious part. Each such encounter subtly shifts our perspective, reminding us that we exist not only within human history, but within cosmic history. Not only within earthly geography, but within the vast geography of space. Not only within human-constructed environments, but within a universe whose processes and patterns both precede and transcend our brief moment of technological civilization. The recognition that objects regularly travel between star systems challenges our historical conception of cosmic isolation. For most of human history, we understood the distances between stars as absolute barriers, as unbridgeable gaps that effectively isolated our solar system from others, that rendered each stellar neighborhood a separate cosmic island. The discovery of interstellar comets and asteroids transforms this understanding. It reveals a universe more interconnected, more fluid, more characterized by movement and exchange than our ancestors could have imagined. It suggests a cosmic geography, not of isolated regions, but of continuous space through which matter regularly travels, connecting distant systems through physical exchange, creating a material network that spans interstellar distances and transcends the boundaries we once thought absolute. This shift in perspective has profound implications for our understanding of ourselves, our planet, our potential future. It suggests that Earth has never existed in true isolation from other star systems, that our planet has likely been visited by interstellar objects throughout its history, that material exchanges between cosmic neighborhoods have always been part of our reality. It raises intriguing possibilities about the origins of organic compounds essential for life, about potential mechanisms for panspermia, about connections between biological evolution on Earth and cosmic processes beyond our solar system. It expands our sense of relevant context from the merely planetary to the interstellar, from the solar system to the galactic, from the local to the truly universal. These shifts in perspective are subtle, cumulative, often unconscious. They occur not as dramatic revelations, but as gradual expansions of awareness, as quiet adjustments in our understanding of what is possible, what is out there, what constitutes reality beyond our immediate experience. They shape our collective imagination, our sense of possibility, our conception of the context within which all our human activities unfold. They influence our art, our literature, our philosophy, our science, our ethics, our politics, all the varied expressions of human consciousness responding to its recognition of its cosmic context, of its participation in a reality far larger and more complex than any single perspective can encompass. Perhaps this is one measure of a civilization's maturity, its capacity to situate itself within progressively larger contexts, to recognize its participation in systems and processes that transcend its immediate boundaries, to find meaning and purpose not in its centrality to the cosmic narrative, but in its conscious participation in it, in its capacity to witness, to understand, to respond with wonder and creativity to the patterns and processes within which it finds itself embedded, to recognize in visitors like 3i Atlas not threats to human significance, but opportunities for expanded awareness, for deeper understanding, for more profound connection with the cosmic community, of which we are a small but conscious part. And when night falls again, the sky will look the same, yet different to those who followed the journey of 3i Atlas. The familiar stars will shine with their ancient light. The planets will follow their predictable paths. The patterns recognized by our ancestors will remain unchanged in their slow celestial dance. Yet something will have shifted in our relationship to this eternal canvas. Some new awareness will have been awakened, some deeper recognition of our participation in the cosmic narrative, some expanded sense of possibility, of connection, of belonging to something far larger than our individual lives, our human societies, our planetary home. This change will be subtle, personal, largely invisible to external observation. It will exist primarily in the realm of consciousness, of awareness, of meaning-making, rather than physical transformation. And yet it is real. It matters. It shapes how we understand ourselves, how we relate to others, how we conceive of our place within the larger story of life on Earth and beyond. It influences what we value, what we protect, what we create, what we pass on to future generations. It forms part of the invisible architecture, of meaning within which all our more visible actions and decisions unfold. The astronomer, returning to her telescope after observing Three-Eye Atlas, will see the familiar stars with slightly different eyes, with a deeper recognition of the space between them as not empty void but medium of connection, channel of communication, thoroughfare for travelers that occasionally pass near enough for human detection. The child learning about the comet in a classroom will incorporate this knowledge into an emerging understanding of cosmic geography that includes not just planets orbiting stars, but objects moving between them, that recognizes our solar system not as isolated island but as neighborhood within a continuously connected cosmic community. The artist responding to the comet's passage will create works that translate astronomical data into forms accessible to human appreciation, that help others experience the wonder and significance of interstellar visitation, that extend the meaning of this cosmic encounter beyond the limited circle of direct scientific observation. Each of these responses, scientific, educational, artistic, philosophical, contributes to a collective transformation of human awareness, to a gradual expansion of our conceptual horizons, our imaginative capacities, our sense of cosmic context, to an evolution of consciousness that parallels and complements our biological evolution, our technological development, our cultural elaboration. That enables us to participate more fully, more consciously, more creatively in the cosmic processes within which we are embedded, to recognize ourselves not as separate from, but as expressions of universal patterns and principles that manifest across scales from the quantum to the galactic, from the momentary to the eternal, from the particular to the universal. Perhaps this ongoing expansion of awareness represents one dimension of our cosmic purpose, not a purpose assigned from without, but one emerging from within, from the inherent nature of consciousness as process of progressive self-transcendence, of continual boundary dissolution and reconstitution at higher levels of complexity and integration, from our capacity to incorporate new experiences into expanded frameworks of understanding, to translate physical encounters into meaningful patterns, to transform data into insight, observation into appreciation, knowledge into wisdom, to evolve not just physically but conceptually, not just technologically but philosophically, not just socially but cosmically. In this light, our observation of Three-Eye Atlas represents not just scientific achievement, but evolutionary development, not just data collection but consciousness expansion, not just astronomical event but cosmic communion, a moment of alignment between human awareness and universal process, between conscious observation and physical manifestation, between the part of the cosmos that moves according to gravitational principles and the part that witnesses, wonders, finds meaning in these movements, between matter organized into temporary configurations following predictable trajectories and matter organized into temporary configurations capable of predicting, observing, appreciating those trajectories, between the universe experiencing itself through physical interaction and the universe experiencing itself through conscious contemplation. There is a completeness in this relationship, a reciprocity between the observed and the observer, the physical and the conscious, the moving and the witnessing, a complementarity that suggests neither alone constitutes the full reality of cosmic experience, that the universe manifests not just through material configurations and energetic transformations, but through the awareness that emerges from particular organizations of matter and energy. That cosmic evolution includes not just the development of physical structures, but the emergence of consciousness capable of recognizing, understanding, appreciating those structures. That reality encompasses both the journey of 3i Atlas through our solar system and our human awareness of, response to finding meaning in that journey. As the comet recedes from view, as it returns to the interstellar darkness from which it emerged, it leaves behind not just scientific data, but expanded human awareness. Not just records in astronomical archives, but altered perspectives in conscious minds. Not just measurements of physical parameters, but enriched understanding of cosmic context. Not just information about one particular object, but deepened appreciation of our participation in universal processes. These legacies, though less tangible than the comet's physical passage, may ultimately prove more significant as contributions to our evolving consciousness, our expanding awareness, our deepening relationship with the cosmic community, of which we are a small but conscious part. As subtle but enduring shifts in how we understand ourselves, our place, our purpose within the vast, dynamic, endlessly creative universe we call home.